So we all have our own version of reality that we think is everybody's version of reality. And so how we think, how we interpret things, what our emotional reactions are to different situations, we feel that this is universal across the board and everybody else, thinks and feels like we do. And if they don't, then something's wrong with them. Because our way of thinking and feeling is the obviously only correct one that, is appropriate for the situation. So this kind of view gets us into a lot of trouble, doesn't it? Because what happens is we're consistently knocking, as my mother put it, knocking your head against the wall. And the wall's not going to budge. It's your head that's going to get hurt. Because we just have all sorts of unrealistic expectations, And so this is really symptomatic of how rigid our mind is, how fixed our way of thinking is, and how much grasping at true existence we have. Because something appears truly existent, we project something on it, and we think that it's like that objectively out there by itself, And so there's so many layers of this because, I can look at the recorder and say, oh, this is a good recorder and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I assume everybody else thinks it's a good recorder. But no, forget it. Everybody has different preferences and different things like that. So that's one level of kind of grasping, at true existence. It's a truly existent good recorder. But, even getting rid of that idea, we're still not seeing that we think this thing is a recorder to start with, And we're not even seeing this thing as a dependent arising event. We're seeing it as, it has recorderness from its own side. Yeah, that's another layer of it, And then, so that's a deeper layer. Then our interpretation of it's a good recorder is kind of the next one up. And then the interpretation of, I love it, and it means I'm important because I possess it. That's even another layer, of grossness on top of the whole thing. And yet it's amazing how we just get stuck in all this stuff, isn't it? And so that's one of the real things that we see when we live together and when we hear teachings and try and practice the teachings, is that, how we think is not reality, and how we view and experience the world is not some kind of objective reality. It's a conditioned event, conditioned by our karma, conditioned by our habitual patterns, conditioned by the physical body that we've taken, so much conditioning. It's not something that exists objectively out there. Okay. So you could just ask Achala. He thought this was a crummy teaching. He was meowing all the way through it. And he thinks the world right now should revolve around giving him some food. And you might think that also, because you're hungry and I keep talking. So, we just have to see what's coming from our mind and what's, an objective reality that is out there. Okay? Right, Ash?